So this video is to just go over a couple of the questions that were probably the most missed from the last quiz. This is part of why we are not going to be taking the test on Thursday, but instead we'll have a skills check over this material and the 9.3. That skills check will be on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So number 4 and 5 were actually the most missed, and it was all because of this angle. So in the first case, the angle is x over 2. In the second case, the angle is 3x. It was all about how to handle that. And it wasn't the pre-calculus part that was the issue. It was the basic algebra that was the issue. So let's take a giant step back. Think about 7th grade when you first learned how to solve equations. So look at this first case. If I want to solve for x, of course you know you're going to divide both sides by 3. And so x equals 10 over 3. All right, that's straightforward. So what if, look, letter B, you're doing the same thing, you're still dividing by 3, and something I mentioned to you guys before was I said instead of dividing the whole thing by 3, which is what you're doing, it's easier to think of it as when you divide, you're just putting a 3 in the denominator because denominator means division. So you're dividing by 3, so in this case you're going to get 11 over 12. Okay, look at letter C. If I want to solve for x in this case, in order to get rid of the 3, I'm going to have to multiply both sides by 3. And when you multiply by 3, I think you can tell x equals 30. But look at letter D, and here's where a lot of you did not know how to handle this. I say a lot of you, you know, probably 5 or 6, which to me is a lot because this is 7th grade math. So letter D, if you want to solve for x, you're still doing the same thing. You're still going to multiply both sides by 3. But on the right side, when you multiply by 3, that doesn't mean you're multiplying by 3 over 3. That's multiplying by 1. That means when you multiply by 3, it's like you're multiplying the numerator. You could think of it this way. You're multiplying by 3 over 1. So what you get is x equals on top 33 and on bottom 4. Okay, so look at letter E. Am I going to multiply by 3 or divide by 3? Well, you're looking at this side to get rid of the 3. You're going to divide by 3, so that's the same as putting it in the denominator. So you're going to end up with x equals 2 pi over 9. Look at letter F. If I want to solve for x, in order to get rid of that 2, you're multiplying by 2. Multiplying by 2, again, not both the top and the bottom, because when you say multiplying by 2, that's kind of like 2 over 1. So x is going to equal, you could say 10 pi over 6, and that's fine, but that would simplify to be 5 pi over 3. Okay, so all of that is 7th grade math. Let's take it back to number 4 and 5 from the quiz. So on number 4, remember, the first thing you want to do is get the trig function by itself. So if I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to have the cosine of x over 2 equals plus or minus square root of 3. And since we know the square root of 4 is 2, I'm just going to write it as square root of 3 over 2. So that means the angle, this whole thing is my big old theta, the angle has to be, well, cosine equals root 3 over 2 at the pi over 6 angles, and since it's plus or minus, I want all 4 quadrants, so pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and 11 pi over 6. But since I'm really solving for x and not just theta, what I was calling theta was actually x over 2, right? Well, if I want to solve for x, wouldn't I need to multiply by 2? So basically, I'm going to multiply all of these by 2. Well, that's the same as saying you're multiplying by 2 over 1. So I'm going to get x equals pi over 6 times 2 would be 2 pi over 6, which, yes, you could simplify. 5 pi over 6, if you multiply by 2, would be 10 pi over 6. Yes, we'll simplify. 14 pi over 6 and 22 pi over 6. And since I'm giving you another chance on these, when we take our skills check on Monday or Tuesday, I'm expecting you to simplify this and say your final answer then would be pi over 3 or 5 pi over 3 or 7 pi over 3, or 11 pi over 3. And that would be our final answer. Okay, so look at number 5. And the reason I'm calling this number 5 is because it was number 5 from the quiz. And so you start by getting the trig function by itself. So I'm going to divide by 4. So that means the sine of 3x is going to be 2 root 3 over 4 would be root 3 over 2. Notice I'm not writing plus or minus because I didn't take the square root of both sides. I just divided by 4. So now, for what angle, that's my big old theta, for what angle will the sine equal root 3 over 2? Well, that's going to be the pi over 3 angles. So pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3. But my angle, remember, was 3x. So I'm saying, when is theta, or when is 3x going to equal those? So in order to solve, I'm going to divide by 3. Remember, dividing by 3 is like putting it in the denominator. So x equals pi over 9, or 2 pi over 9. Okay, so some of you did fine, right? There was a good handful who didn't, so hopefully that helped. But for everybody, look at this. What if I step up my game on the algebra? Since we're taking a day to review algebra, let's step it up. All right, so I want to solve. I want to get the trig function by itself. So first I'm going to add my 1/2. So I have sine squared equals 3/4. And then I'm going to take the square root. So sine equals plus or minus, because I'm taking the square root of both sides, right? So square root of 3 over 2. And so now I'm going to take all 4 quadrants, since it's plus or minus. I want my angle, which is 3x over 2, to equal, let's see, the sine is square root of 3 over 2 at the pi over 3 angles. So I want all 4 of them, pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and what's the other one? 5 pi over 3. And so if I want to solve for x, the easy way to get rid of the 3/2 would be to multiply by 2/3, right? So I would just have x. So if I multiply all the way across by 2/3, for the first one, I'm going to have 2 pi over 9. If I multiply by 2/3 on the second one, I'm going to have 4 pi over 9. Multiply by 2/3 on the next one, I'm going to have 8 pi over 9. 2/3 on the last one, I'm going to have 10 pi over 9. Okay. Oh my, look at letter B. What if I want to solve, I got to get the trig function by itself. So first I'm going to subtract that, and I'm going to have 4 cosine 3x equals, if I subtract, won't that be negative 2 square root of 3? Divide by 4, so cosine 3x equals, if I divide by 4, that's going to be negative square root of 3. Look, I'm dividing by 4. Square root of 3 over 2 if I simplify. So for what angle does cosine equal negative root 3 over 2? Let's see, the reference angle is pi over 6. Cosine's negative in second and fourth, so 5 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. So to solve for x, I'm going to divide by 3. X is 5 pi over 18, or 11 pi over 18. Okay. Oh my, what about letter C? Well, is the trig function by itself? Yes, it is, because notice this whole thing is the angle, right? That whole thing is my angle. So for what angle does the tangent equal 1? Well, those are the pi over 4 reference angle. Tangent's positive in first and third, so pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. But remember, theta was actually x over 2 plus pi over 4. So I need that angle to either equal pi over 4 or to equal 5 pi over 4. So if I'm going to solve, first I'm going to subtract pi over 4. So x over 2 equals, If I subtract it from that, I have 0. If I subtract it from 5 pi over 4, don't I have 4 pi over 4, which is just pi? And then last step, if I'm going to solve for x, I'm going to multiply by 2. So x is either 0 times 2 is 0, or if I multiply the second one by 2, I get 2 pi. Okay, last one, letter D. Notice all of the angles are 2x. All right, that's fine. I still start by factoring because I have multiple trig terms. So I'm going to factor out a secant of 2x. That's going to leave me with 1 plus sine of 2x. Okay, so either secant 2x equals 0, or if I set this factor equal to 0, I'm going to have sine of 2x equals -1. Okay, change it to the reciprocal. If secant is 0, then cosine of that angle, the reciprocal of 0 is undefined. And remember we said cosine is never undefined. Over here, when does sine equal -1? Well, when the angle is, I know sine is +1 at pi over 2, which means it's -1 at 3 pi over 2. So if I'm going to solve for x, I'm going to divide by 2, and x equals 3 pi over 4. Okay, so that's kind of some refresher and some kind of moving it to the next level of the problems that were most commonly missed on that skills check. So when you take your skills check on Monday or Tuesday next week, this will be part of it, and the other part will be the information that we've talked about from 9.3.